Hi, how's it going? We're going to be talking about Chapter 19 and Gibson-Bond's Chapter 12, and I am a little sick, so excuse me for that. So, Schell goes on to talk about transmedia worlds, the worlds inside of like stories and movies and such. We usually call them the universe, like the Star Wars universe. Um, so, first is kids love the worlds and the stories. Uh, they don't love the characters. They do, but they don't connect with them specifically. They actually end up wanting to be in the world and have uh, imagine themselves inside of the world rather than be with the characters themselves. And this goes on to how Star Wars made dolls, or not dolls, action figures, and how they would imagine how those action figures would play out in their own imagination of the action figures world. Now he also goes on to talk about Pokemon and how it was a huge hit. It started out as a game in Nintendo, the Game Boy, and it wasn't graphically, it wasn't graphically pleasing, but it ended up being very successful in with with how we as kids related to the universe. It ended up having a big change in how the gateway was displayed. Now the gateway is talking about like uh, the media form, like a movie, or the Game Boy, like a system of a sort. So it started out in the Game Boy, and then it changed its system to like uh, the TV shows and comics, and then eventually it would even change itself to card games. It made a lot of money through having tons of uh, different gateways, and this he mentions is the binocular effect, which would be how they are given a close-up view of the distant characters or figures, which brings them closer to the world of Pokemon, which was why Pokemon was a big hit on the handheld consoles, because they were much closer to the inside the game than on normal consoles. Properties of transmedia worlds. So how they are powerful. Um, this is saying how the worlds have a strong effect over people, and how they end up giving people passion towards uh, the world itself and or the universe itself. They are long lived. Most transmedia worlds are very old. Like if we take for example the Warcraft series, like World of Warcraft. It is the World of Warcraft wasn't the first game, and that game is like 15 years old itself. It all started on the Warcraft, and then Warcraft 2 and Warcraft 3. So it's been out for a long time, and this this example showed that how they evolve over time as well. They aren't just stay stuck at their basic form. Warcraft used to be a very different game compared to how World of Warcraft took the universe, and it ended up changing also to how Hearthstone is as well. What successful worlds have in common? They are intuitive. these aren't all of the examples, but I felt like these were the important ones. Uh, they are intuitive. Um, they have a creative individual at their core. They make sense through any of their gateways. Um, they are often about discovery. A lot of the transmedia worlds are often about discovery, like Pokemon. It's not only about discovering new Pokemon, but that is the main purpose. But also going around the world and discovering new locations and discovering new friends along the way in the game. Um, and then they are about wish fulfillment, starting Gibson-Bond's Chapter 12, guiding the player. First, we talk about direct guidance and the qualities that uh, determine how good the direct guidance is. First is immediacy. You know how abrupt it is, or how the timing of it. The scarcity, how little information is given. You can't give too much information at once. It's important to give less information and guide the player through it. Um, Brevity, which is the amount of information displayed. You can't tell the player to do give them a paragraph on what to do. You have to give them a few words on it. And Clarity, which is how clear the directions are. Now, the four methods of direct guidance are instructions, call to action, map or guidance system, and pop-ups. And then there is indirect guidance, which can be measured through invisibility and reliability. Invisibility being how visible the indirect guidance is. It wants to be as invisible as possible, and the reliability is how reliable the guidance or the indirect guidance is to make sure the player gets to his goal. Methods of indirect guidance are constraints, goals, physical interference, visual design, audio design, player avatar, and non-player characters. I feel like these are very important, just for us to get to know of the information and be sure that we understand how we could use these new skills and concepts. When introducing new skills and concepts, we want to try these few examples. Isolated intro, where like the player is isolated away from everything else, and even the story, and are just trying to learn the basics of the mechanics. Expansion, which is expanding the way the mechanic would be used in the same instance, and adding danger, showing how the mechanic could be harmful or could be used against harm, and increasing the difficulty, so changing how the layout would be for the mechanic to be used in a harder situation. And then integration would be and that would be the end of that sequence, and you would just keep doing that for every mechanic at least. And integration would be how the mechanic is integrated, to make sure how the mechanic is integrated within the current mechanics, and how they can combine those mechanics and use them throughout the game together. Thanks for listening.